Hey everybody, Sean Early here. Welcome to a kind of overcast, muggy, warmish spring summer day here in Germany. Anyway, today I want to talk a little bit about your resume. As we all know, the job market, and as I've been talking about a lot, is totally dystopian right now. It's taking what used to take, a couple months to find a job is now taking 6 months to a year and a half to 2 years to get hired. Not because you're not qualified for the job, but literally just because the job market has changed. Jobs as we know it have changing, going away. People are having to literally apply for hundreds, if not thousands of jobs to try to get any kind of interview, much less get hired for a job these days. On top of that, people are using AI to generate their resumes. Companies are using AI to filter the resume process. People are using AI to change and submit the resumes to apply to jobs. So AI is basically being used everywhere in the application process and the reviewing process. So Stanford University just released a study a couple weeks ago on this AI filtering in the hiring process. And the results are actually pretty shocking. I mean, we all know, we all suspect some kind of sneaky shit is going on there, but this actually is some actual data that proves the suspicions. They're coining a phrase called algorithmic monoculture, which is happening in these AI filtering tools. 90% of all companies in America apparently are using AI in the hiring filtering process. There's only like a handful of these tools that everybody is using, basically. Every company is using. 60% of the Fortune 100 are actually only using one tool called HireVue. And what's happening in these tools is some sort of systemic rejection, which is happening. So some of these tools are actually applying a scoring to your resume. So you can apply to one job with your CV in this system. It applies a score to your resume. And then if you apply to a different job with your resume, the same system applies the same score. And so this scoring process is being carried through from every company with your resume if they're all using the same platform. This systemic rejection is happening. And they're finding that even with the best, most optimized resumes, with the most highly qualified people, only 1 in 25 application processes are actually getting pushed through to the next stage in the hiring process. So this is pretty dramatic. And like I said, this is some things everybody kind of suspects, but this actually applies some actual data to it. Apparently, there are also some racial biases that are being applied. This is some pretty serious stuff that I think needs serious looking into. And what some of these HR people are saying is they're seeing the death of the resume, so to speak. Not really meaning like it's going away, but as we all know, a resume is no longer a chronological list of your experiences. It's a marketing document these days. And it's just so full of AI buzzwords and keywords and blah, blah, that it's really getting difficult for hiring managers to actually differentiate anybody's information. And so the wash of AI is... You gonna sneeze? Sorry, the dog was snarfing on a piece of grass or something. Anyway, what was I saying? So anyway, AI is being used so much in the application and reviewing process that there's so much AI that it's being difficult for hiring managers to even differentiate any of the CVs. And since AI is being used to write them, they're all sounding the same basically. And so they're having a hard time figuring out who is actually sort of real and who's just bullshitting. And so what this means to me is that, one, if you're using AI in your application process, you need to realize that everyone else is. And so you need to differentiate yourself, most importantly, by being real. And I'm one of the first persons to say I can't stand LinkedIn. I can't stand the bullshitting on there. I can't stand the fakery. I can't stand seeing another AI-generated post by somebody saying, oh, how wonderful our team building exercise was or whatever. It just makes me nauseous. But LinkedIn is the biggest employment-related platform out there. And if you're not active on LinkedIn and being real and sharing information and networking and creating content that expresses your value, then you're really losing out on an opportunity, if not shooting yourself in the foot in terms of trying to find work. So if you're not creating content that shares your value, then you should really get onto it. I've talked a lot in the past about how the way to not defeat but compete with this sort of AI world that we're in is to just be real. And I think the hiring managers are finally coming to that point where, if you don't have any social presence, if you don't have any content that expresses your value, your thoughts, the fact that you're a real person and not just another generic AI generated resume, it's becoming mandatory these days. So I think that, one, stop posting AI shit on LinkedIn. 2, in addition to the AI generated resumes, start posting links to places where you're actually being seen as real. Share your LinkedIn link, share your Instagram link, whatever it is that you're doing to make you look like you're a real person and actually have a real opinion. And 3, I think just realize that this is becoming the standard. And for me, I mean, every time I was in a position to hire somebody, I would scroll the CV for a second just to make sure there's a few keywords in there. And then I would totally go to their LinkedIn profile. And especially for people who are creatives, like designers and marketers and any kind of creative related hiring job, the first thing I would do is I'd go to their social media and see if they even have any. Because God forbid you should be a marketer these days and not have a social profile. You know what I mean? There's so many people out there who's like, well, I don't do social media. I'm like, well, you better start. As much as, certain things I don't like either, but it's mandatory. It's mandatory just to prove your legitimacy, to prove that you have an opinion, to prove your networking capabilities, to prove your legitimacy from other people to be validated for the type of work that you do. Because, LinkedIn is just so full of not just everybody looking for a job, but people you've worked with, people your managers that you've worked with, companies you work with. And if you bullshit on LinkedIn, somebody will call you out, because they know what you've done and what you've not done. And so in a way, your LinkedIn profile should be your CV. And even though there's a lot of companies, a lot of hiring managers that still haven't even caught on to the fact that LinkedIn is a thing, I think it's also proof that maybe you want to work for a company that actually does acknowledge that, welcome to 2026. Social media is a thing. The internet is a thing. Technology is a thing. And if you're hiring people, then also, maybe you want to hire somebody who is up to date in where technology is as well, especially in tech jobs, which are so challenging now to get hired. So those are my 2 cents. Get involved on LinkedIn, start using it, start networking, start creating some content that expresses your value, and let's try to get you a job. I'm Sean Early. I'll talk to you later. Bye.